you're back with us at the sweltering Hungaroring. Confirmation of how they finished after 77 absolutely grueling laps. Mika Häkkinen, the winner here today for the second year running. He now leads the World Championship standings and is in shape to do what Fangio did back in the 50s, namely win 3 world titles in a row. And for such a hot and grueling race, really, quite a high finishing rate as well here in Hungary. Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen rounding out the top 6. Oh. Right then, Tony Jardine has been joined by Martin Brundle. Well done for getting round here so rapidly, Martin.
He's fit as well.
We made a big thing looking down behind you about what was going to happen at the start here. It was absolutely crucial to how the race wound up. But, I mean, David Coulthard, when he sits back and he's had his cold shower, he's going to say, start didn't go my way.
No, he's not had good starts. Remember back in, was it 98, where he was launching off the starts, gaining at least a row a race? It's a head thing, I think, when you get a Grand Prix car off the start. Assuming they've all got the same gear ratios and fuel load, which we know they had now. Now we've seen the race. It was Häkkinen once again who hooked it up and drove right between the pyramid. Look, and had to use that little piece of extra track we talked about on the inside to make sure he could stick with it. And Michael, very sensibly there, really having to give way. Coulthard kept his head after his terrible start and did a good job not to lose out to Ralf and Barrichello at one point there.
I mean, when you say it's a head thing, what do you mean? What do you mean there exactly?
I think you've made a good start in a Grand Prix, maybe on a Saturday afternoon. You know, in your mind, are you comfortable that you start? If you start thinking about it and it's, you know, you spend too long really analysing it, you just get into the rhythm and you're.
Now.
Well, listen to that. I don't think that Mika Häkkinen's a betting man, do you? It didn't seem too chuffed to be made favourite for the world title, but. Any best guess about what he did to his motor between yesterday, when we saw him with his head in his hands worried, and today?
No, I mean, I don't think you can really hazard a guess at that. What I would say in general terms is that this is a very low grip circuit, and the last time McLaren did very well a low grip circuit was in France. And you need really good traction here. And think from France onwards, McLaren have done like new rear diffuser, new suspension. Mercedes, Ilmor have worked really hard on the mapping of the engine. I mean, so fuel efficient. And for Häkkinen to go like, he must have had a hot water bottle in his overalls full of fuel or something, I thought at one stage. But, you know, it's just that overall package. Ferrari have done a lot of work as well, but they're stalling on Schumacher there. Oh, we're behind them again. He needed to win here. We're going to these fast circuits now where McLaren, Mercedes could have an edge.
Absolutely. Let's, Mika Häkkinen a little bit sort of hedging his bets as to whether he is a favourite, but with 5 to go, this is how things look now. And I think just looking at that, Martin, you've put a line through Rubens Barrichello's challenge now. I think we were probably clutching at straws anyway, really, there,
I think it's then there were 3, really, after today, because he was a long way behind the pace. He said it wasn't a circuit that suited him. The gap to Michael looked 13 points, so really it's now down to 3 men. Unless, as I said in the commentary, something very bizarre happens in the next few races and Michael doesn't score any points. I think he will now have to fall into line and support Michael. And of course, Coulthard will have to stay pretty close to Häkkinen to make sure he's not having to play that role again in the last race or 2.
All along, Michael Schumacher has said that Mika Häkkinen, the world champion, is his main challenger. Are you now starting to see it that way as well? I
think Mika didn't know what to say to answer that question. But the whole season has ebbed and flowed. I mean, after 4 races, you wouldn't have given anybody a prayer other than Michael Schumacher to have this championship sewn up by this race, for example. Nigel Mansell won the World Championship in 92, wasn't it, at this event in August. So we thought Michael was going to do the same thing. I don't think it, you know, the pattern is, though, as I said, Mika Häkkinen, 32 points out of a possible 40 in the last 4 Grand Prix. That's ominous, isn't it?
It's ominous. It's a terrific performance from McLaren. Ron Dennis, the McLaren team boss. Goodness me, what a day they have had here today. Here he is chatting to James.
Well done, Ron. You're now leading both championships. I bet that feels pretty sweet.
It'll feel better in the morning.
Mika found some amazing speed today.
He drove very well. I mean, we were able to control the race. And we're a bit disappointed we didn't come first and second. I think we could have done it. But first and third's pretty good.
Why is that though, Ron? Because DC just didn't. He looked to me as though he could have gone a bit longer in the race.
You know, it wasn't a perfect race. Close to perfect, but not perfect. But championship's still wide open. It's nice to go away from here leading both championships, but it's a long way to go. Thank you.
Long way to go. It's going to be very exciting. We'll look more at David Coulthard in a couple of minutes' time. But Jensen Button had another impressive performance here today. But there was one incident when Fisichella spun right in front of him, Tony, and he did very, very well to stay in the race, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was coming out of turn one. You see, Fisichella was already wide there, and he was having brake balance problems. And there's Button very, very nearly collected him there. But at the same time, Eddie Irvine just slipped through and took the 7th place, which they were all fighting for at that moment. We thought actually the Jaguar would go a little bit better, but there was damage done to the Benetton, and Fisichella was in and out of the pits after that and eventually retired.
We were having a little giggle before the race, Tony, weren't we, when Rubens Barrichello was saying, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen if Michael's behind me and I'm leading. And I think right behind us here, wasn't it? Yeah. We had a little indication as if anybody had any doubts.
Yeah, I mean, OK, although they were on different strategies and Schumacher had already been into the pits, if it was drivers that were fighting for position, the driver in Barrichello's case there would have been going like crazy until his pit stop in the next 2 laps or whatever it was. Probably the radio was blasting away, so let him through, because, you know, he was back in 5th place at that time, Schumacher, and he needed to get on and up. He's the number one, there's no question or doubt about it. It doesn't matter what De Montezemolo says.
Well, let's get the Ferrari viewpoint, shall we? Ross Brawn, the man who does so much for them, backstage, here he is, chatting to James.
Bad luck, Ross. Guess it wasn't really your day today. Are you surprised by the speed of Hakkinen?
A little bit, yes. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, but Michael was being very cautious with the tyres. Obviously, we had a bad experience at Magny-Cours. And with it being so hot today, we didn't want to get the tyres too hot. So we were being fairly cautious. I spoke to him in the first stint, and he was happy with the car. And once it became clear it would be difficult to beat Mika, the focus then was to stay in front of David, which we did.
You got out of jail, though, with Coulthard on the pit stops, because he could certainly have, if he'd run a bit longer, he would have nicked it 2nd place, wouldn't he?
Well, we could have gone a bit longer, but obviously all that traffic coming up, we didn't see how we could do it, and we were worried Coulthard would jump in the pits, so I think we did the right thing.
How are you going to get the lead back, Ross?
Go first.
It's fair to say the quality of the work in the pits was quite outstanding today, but I want to talk to you, particularly from a driver's perspective, about Marc Genet holding up David Coulthard, and you never know, it could even have cost McLaren the 1-2 here.
Yeah, I think this blue flag waving system, you're allowed to pass 5 of them, then you get a stop-go penalty. Genet was on an in-lap. He held Coulthard up earlier in the race. Whether it's just coincidence or what, I don't know. And this is, I think, one of the earlier ones of that. In fact, no, I think Genet's wondering now. He's getting radio calls. I've got to come in, are you sure? What's that all about? And just didn't yield to Coulthard at all, having let Schumacher pass easily and still pinched Coulthard into the fastest corner on the circuit. And that cost David about 1.5 seconds. And we saw the net result of that when they exited the pits. David exited the pits, he just couldn't get up alongside Michael into the first corner. So, but that's give and take. I mean, from Grand Prix to Grand Prix, some of those you win, some you lose. But Genet played a key role, really, in the race today.
I mean, is that a driver in the zone concentrating and so much noise in his ears, or is that Genet being a little bit tricky and not playing the game?
I don't think he was targeting Coulthard, I have to say. I think he was just being a bit gormless, frankly. I think it was not enough substance to soak up the echoes in the head there temporarily. I think he probably couldn't. He was probably having a discussion, why am I going to come in again? Because
or worse to that effect.
Yeah, something like that. But we used to have a situation where passing back markers was a key element, one of the skills to win or get good places in Grand Prix. This blue flag system came in, and now everybody needs to be having the same advantages, or they should just switch the whole thing off and let drivers demonstrate their prowess in clearing the back markers.
Tony, then we saw how crucial that was when David Coulthard came out of the pits, and he could have been ahead of Michael Schumacher, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, there he is coming in, and it is a superb pit stop. It's Michael Nigline and his team from Woking, the boys there doing a superb job, 6.6. And there he goes, out on his way. Now, looking down the end of the pit straight, you just see where Michael is. And this is how close it was. Just for a moment we thought, no, not quite did it, but look at this, just a whisker in it there. And David out onto the racing line, and he could have just done, as Martin said, that's down to Genet, unfortunately. But as James said, I think he could have gone a little bit longer on the field. If he'd stayed out, he could have got ahead that way.
But as Ross pointed out, I think they were just coming up to some back markers, so you've got to read the race as well. You can't stick rigidly to a strategy, and I think both teams saw a queue of backmarkers. We remember Hakkinen cleared them very easily, all in one lap.
One movement, yeah.
And then Schumacher and Coulthard came up to them, so I think they both elected to pit early.
One of the drawbacks of the Hungaroring is that if you want to get past somebody, it is virtually impossible. And if that fellow is Michael Schumacher, you could almost say it's totally impossible.
Well, you can pass Michael, as David's shown on several occasions.
Not
but
here, though, perhaps.
not here, unless you've got a clear car advantage, or if he's damaged his tyres in some way and he starts struggling into the braking zones. Coulthard here, almost the mandatory distance behind that the aerodynamics dictate. That's what they've got to sort out. You can't just keep changing the racetracks, sort the aerodynamics out.
But, I mean, what you said in the commentary, you were looking for places where perhaps Coulthard could have done it. I mean, was there anywhere where you thought he had a chance there, or perhaps he'd have nicked it there, or was it just no way?
I think, as I said, Coulthard had a car that was a little bit faster, but not significantly enough in any one particular element, traction, braking, turn in, or anything that was going to put him in a position to have a go, and anything was just going to be a crazy big slide up the inside. But even then he didn't get a sniff of that, and it didn't surprise me at all. Michael's car was working well enough to keep David at bay, but I have to say the driving today has been brilliant. In fact, all through the weekend, very few incidents. I thought in the first corner there was supreme skill, and we had a lot of fuss about unfair driving, but today Michael yielded to Hakkinen and gave him just enough space. And Coulthard right in the middle there between Ralph and Barrichello. Supreme driving all the way through the field today, and the pit stops were brilliant.
They were. Tony, what have you made of the way that the world champion Mika Hakkinen has returned to form in the last few races?
Well, it coincides with what he did this time last year, because he'd had 5 very bad races and he'd just recovered from the big crash at Hockenheim as well. He came back here and restored all his confidence. What I see now is the 2 championship battles that he's gone through. Incredible hard work is all that he's learned and soaked up through those 2 years. It's now coming menacingly into practice now for Ferrari, who must be scratching their heads as well. And he's the sort of dark horse that's come through now and has become the championship favourite, whether he acknowledges it or not. Yeah. A superb performance from all round. It's a great team performance from McLaren, especially on the technical side as well.
I think, Martin, you mentioned all the Jaguar top brass are here. Johnny Herbert is coming to the end of his Jaguar career, as we know, and a little spin for him at the end that, well, it sums him up really, or sums the way things have gone for him.
Yes, but later on we saw Johnny spin again with an intermittent engine, and this could almost have been the same thing, although Villeneuve, I think, did surprise him there. I think Johnny's on a ramp down now to the end of his Grand Prix career. I don't think the arrows touched him. I'm pretty certain it didn't. In fact, I'm sure it didn't now, watching it again. Johnny had an engine that was misfiring, and if it suddenly cuts on you at a crucial time, locks the rear wheel slightly, and around you go.
Let's have a word, shall we, with Jensen Button. Another fine performance from the 20-year-old British driver at the Hungaroring.
Jensen, a tough race for you?
A bit disappointing, really, because I was in 7th position behind Frentzen. We had a chance of getting some points, and car was working well. I think we didn't have the best traffic in the world, I think, but that was a problem for everyone. And then about halfway through, on about the 30th lap, I think it was, 35th lap, just after my first pit stop, I had a problem with the throttle. Every time I went on the throttle, it wasn't full throttle. I don't know if you saw on the speed traps, but it's about 22 k's down or something. So that's why I slowed down towards the last half of the race, and Irvine and Trulli were able to get past.
How aware were you of them catching up and pushing up behind you?
Obviously a lot, because the team were telling me, and it says on the pit board. But I couldn't do anything. I was pushing as hard as I could. There you go.
It must be a bit frustrating sitting there just waiting for them to go by.
Yeah, very frustrating, seeing when the car was working well as well. So, but there you go.
Benetton bound. Jensen Button, sum it all up for us both, could you? You first, Tony.
Well, I think in Ferrari's case, they'll be examining really all the aerodynamics, all the mechanics. Whether they were getting their tyres working properly is another issue for them. But the big issue, the big picture is, will that Ferrari jinx come and strike again? You know, will they be the bridesmaid yet again? Who knows? They're falling behind.
Hakkinen's engineer's briefcase will be very heavy on the way home tonight. It'll be full of paperwork, and he's got to write it all up tomorrow in a report that will go into the system. They've just been tweaking that car, not even tweaking it actually, major changes, and they hit the sweet spot, and didn't he drive it brilliantly?
Right, thanks very much. Before our highlights tonight, the Charity Shield, Chelsea-Manchester United, 10:45. That is followed by the highlights, and that highlight show repeated on ITV2 on Monday. And next, Top speed, we go to Spa. Qualifying 11:30, the race live 12:15 on Sunday, highlights 11:25. When the temperatures soar, look no further than the Iceman. The Finnish fans will have a ball in Budapest tonight. Bye-bye.